Throughout my 7 trillion hours of Nuzlocking, I've gathered knowledge, experience, and expertise that have refined my skills and allowed me to play on another level.
Ran out of Earth powers, haven't you? No, you didn't run out of Earth powers! No!
But no matter how good I get, no matter how much experience I accumulate, there's always one thing that is constant. One thing that I can't get away from. And that is the sheer amount of death!
Throw up, that's gonna hurt.
Oh, that did way too much damage. Henry is dead as well! No, Bulba's been taken out. Gudra is dead. Zippy, no! No, not again. No, Flop, not you too. We just got critted again, Darren, no!
Can we hang on, maybe live a hit?
No! No! So, how do we solve this problem? Well, just use less Pokemon, idiot. Welcome to Kaizo Ironmon, a challenge so unfair, so brutally addictive, that after 500 runs of pain and sadness, I still kept coming back for more. Kaizo Ironmon is built off one premise: beat the game with one Pokemon. If that Pokemon faints, you restart the game. But there is so much more to Kaizo Ironmon. So many things that make this a challenge unlike anything that you've ever taken on before. A challenge that kept me coming back, death after death, hour after hour. But the best way to explain to you this wonderful tragedy is by starting at the beginning. It starts like any Pokemon game. You name your character, name your rival, grab an item out of your PC, and then you pick your starter as per usual. Now, Kaizo Ironmon is always randomized, which means you don't know what starter Pokemon you're going to get. You could get a Corsola, a Tyranitar, or a Cloyster. Now, usually in Pokemon Challenge runs, you'd pick the Tyranitar. Big, scary, high stats, very good. But in Kaizo Ironmon, you don't pick your starter. A random number generator will choose a ball for you to pick. But a Tyranitar would be pretty good if we just check the rules and... okay. The first rule of Pokemon Kaizo Ironmon, you can't have any Pokemon over 600 base stat total, which includes pretty much every pseudo-legendary, almost every legendary, Tyranitar, Metagross, Dragonite, you name it, you can't have it. But all right, no good Pokemon. I'm sure we can do it with some weaker ones. We managed to defeat the rival battle, which is actually very, very rare because 99% of Kaizo Ironmon runs end in the rival battle at the start of the game, because if you lose it, you reset. And the rival is level 8, whereas you are level 5, putting you in an immediate disadvantage and making you realize, oh, this game means business. Now, if we take a look at this Cloyster, we can see that things aren't all as they seem. All these stat totals seem weird. A Cloyster with low defense? That doesn't make any sense. And why does it know Will-O-Wisp, Assist, Vital Throw with Thunderbolts? And why does it have the Speed Boost ability? Well, in Kaizo Ironmon, the abilities are randomized, the moves are randomized, and yes, even the stats are randomized. Now, fortunately for all of our sanities, the base stat total is kept the same. So a Tyranitar that has 600 base stats will always have 600 base stats, but all the individual stats will be randomized with that 600. So a Tyranitar could have 200 special attack or 500 speed, with the detriment being that it would have to take those remaining points to distribute throughout his other stats. But now we have our Cloyster, we've made it out of the lab, and we're doing a little bit better than 90% of Kaizo Ironmon runs. We look for another Pokemon, because while Cloyster is very cool and awesome, its moveset is not that great. And Cloyster, being a stone evolution Pokemon, doesn't really learn that many moves. So we do a bit of perusing. Just before Viridian Forest, we find ourselves some Ekans and a Slowbro. Now, a level 8 Slowbro, that's pretty good, but it knows Drought. That's not ideal. We don't want a Slowbro that has Droughts. Fortunately, most Pokemon have 2 abilities, so there's a chance we find a Slowbro with something else. And we do. This Slowbro that I just found does not have Droughts. That one did that. But eventually, we find a level 8 Slowbro that does not have Droughts. We end up capturing it, and fantastic! We have ourselves a Pivot. In Kaizo Ironmon, you're allowed to change the one Pokemon that you're using, as long as it's below the level of the Pokemon that you are using already, and it's not a banned Pokemon. It's not too strong. So I catch a Slowbro, and not really thinking much of it. I always thought Slowbro was pretty good, but not the best Pokemon in the world. We name it Tucker. Welcome to the team, Tucker. But as luck would have it, it has Volt Absorb, which takes one of its weaknesses, electric-type moves, and turns it not only into an immunity, but an ability that will allow me to regenerate health when I get hit with electric-type moves. Not only that, it has incredible special attack. Wow, look how big that 27 is. So let's check its randomized moves, and oh my god, Bubble Beam, Leech Life, Psybeam, Blizzard, Wizard? That's an incredible moveset, especially considering most Kaizo Ironmon movesets consist of Growl, Screech, Tackle, and if you're very, very lucky, Ember. So we have a decent Pokemon, a Pokemon that you could actually potentially make a good run with. And now we collect the items because, let's check my notes here in the rules. Oh, yes, another rule of Kaizo Ironmon, you are not allowed to buy potions. And let's keep checking here. And oh, yes, of course. You're also not allowed to grind on wild Pokemon, which means the only experience you'll get in the entire game is experience gained by battling trainers, which is very limited. So if you can't buy potions and you can't grind against wild Pokemon, that exponentially increases the difficulty of the game because every item is incredibly important. You need to scour the bins of every single city in Kanto just on the off chance you might find a disgusting rotten berry that might increase your health by 5 points. But with Tucker the Slowbro in tow, we take on our first opponent. Most runs that get out of the lab will end right here against the first trainer that you have to battle. We are hit with a massive Frenzy Plant, but managed to take down the Flareon with a Bubble Beam. Next up, a Scizor, an incredibly powerful opponent that unfortunately has Water Absorb, making our Bubble Beam completely useless. It looks like this might be the end of the run. Are we just gonna go back to the lab like hundreds have before it? Tucker says, no, not yet. We may be hit with a Shadow Punch, but we have a tiny amount of healing items right now. Very limited, as we can't get them ourselves. We get critical hitted by a Brick Break, and this Scizor has Shadow Punch. If the Scizor uses Shadow Punch now, it's over for Tucker. Fortunately, we hit another Psybeam. He uses Brick Break, and one more takes out the Scizor, meaning the first battle, Tucker has won. But this is the first of many. The Kanto region is filled with trainers, and we need to fight every single one because every piece of experience is astronomically valuable. In a game where, let me just check my notes here. Oh yes, the levels are boosted by 50%. So what would usually be a level 10 opponent turns into a level 15 opponent. What is usually a level 50 opponent turns into a level 75 opponent. So we need every single piece of experience we can get. Tucker battles her way through the Viridian Forest, meaning that now we have to go back and fight that rival battle we've been putting off. My rival, Chat, leads with a Matang, which is easily taken down with a couple of Bubble Beams, and remember that Tyrannosaur I wasn't allowed to pick? Oh yeah, we're gonna have to face this Tyrannosaur in every single rival battle because the rivals keep their starters through the entire game, which means I gave him pretty much the worst Pokemon I could have possibly have given him. But with every trainer defeated, we run through Viridian Forest again and end up in Pewter City, scavenging for every single hidden item that we can possibly find because they're all valuable. Now we arrive at the first gym. Usually, gym leaders, piss baby week, don't have to worry about them, but in Kaizo Ironmon, once you enter a gym, you can't leave. Also, you have to fight every single trainer, which isn't so bad for the first gym considering there's only one, but it will get much, much worse later on in the game. So thankfully, this young child only has a four-legged demon monster supercomputer, which lowers my accuracy and then makes me miss consistently and then hits me with a little Psycho Boost and critical hits me, which is totally fine. It isn't an issue whatsoever. I then miss another Bubble Beam, and I'm in a bit of a sticky situation. Reminder, this is the first person that we're going up against here. I'm missing Bubble Beams consistently. Tucker seems to have a bit of an issue when it comes to landing moves, and now we're down to half health before we even fight the first gym. Thankfully, Tucker learned Extra Sensory, the best psychic type move it could possibly learn in this entire game because of its high PP, chance to flinch, and high attack. But now we're up against Brock, and we can't heal because we're not allowed to heal outside of battle, of course. So we're down to half health and we face Brock, which, let me just check my notes. Oh yes, all gym leaders have an additional 3 Pokemon added on to their usual team, which is just fantastic. Absol starts with a Sunny Day, which makes my Bubble Beam weaker, but Tucker dispatches it. Next up is a Blastoise, who he hits and one-shot with an Extra Sensory. Fantastic news, Tucker. Then Pidgeot enters the fray and paralyzes me. Thankfully, Tucker is way too talented to be hit with any paralysis this time, and a Love Disc enters, gets smashed by a Extra Sensory. It's gone down. The final Pokemon, a Kingdra. Usually a very strong Pokemon, but Tucker, seemingly completely uncaring, Extra Sensory one-shots. And with that, we gain the first gym badge. And we are now in the top 0.1% of all the runs that I have done in this game so far. In my months of running Kaizo Ironmon, I have beaten Brock 4 times. Oh, and that's the easy part. He gives this the TM for skill swap, which, let me just check my notes here. Oh, yes. You can only use TMs given to you by gym leaders, which means any that you find out in the wild, yep, that's bad. Not allowed to use it. But finally, with the first step of our journey done, we can heal to the Pokemon Center. Now, you may think that after defeating the first gym leader, you're safe for a bit. There's nothing to worry about until probably the next gym. Well, you'd be mistaken. After barreling through a few trainers like a wrecking ball, we are faced with our next challenge, Mount Moon. Because if we just take a look at the old rule book here, it says that once we enter a dungeon, a cave, or anything of these sorts, we can't leave unless we have to come back for story reasons. Which means as soon as you step foot in Mount Moon, you either make it to the end or you die. There is no going back now. So we grab as many items as we can carry, trying to avoid all of the trainers. There is a strategy to this Mount Moon approach, and that strategy involves running all the way from the start to the end of Mount Moon to fight the mandatory trainers at the end. Then once you've done that, and you defeated the grunt and scientist at the end that you have to battle, only then should you backtrack and face with the other trainers. And the reason for that is, since you're trapped in the cave, if you fight one of the earlier trainers and they poison you or they weaken you down too much, you still have to fight the mandatory trainers. If you fight the mandatory trainers first, and then you're in a bad situation, you can leave at any point. But Mount Moon is a treasure trove of leaf stones, TMs that you can't use, and some potential helpful berries. So after defeating the mandatory trainers, we head back and we face off with all the optional ones, trying to accumulate as much experience as possible. A smart trainer will be around level 30 by the end of Mount Moon if they can, but obviously, if one of these trainers puts you in a sticky situation, you'll be forced to leave with a lot less experience, making you much weaker for what's coming next. Thankfully, however, Tucker is an absolute beast, a queen we can call her, and destroys everything in her path. You might be thinking at this point, oh, but you're level 30, you're gonna be so over-leveled, nothing will be a challenge. But with the combination of a 50% level boost on all opposing Pokemon, a lack of healing items, and a seemingly never-ending gauntlet of trainers, along with the possibility of dying instantly to moves like Perish Song or Destiny Bond, along with the possibility of a Shedinja popping up that will always have Wonder Guard, since Shedinja's ability cannot be randomized in Kaizo Ironmon. Every single battle that you enter is a risk, especially since you're being constantly whittled down battle after battle. But Tucker, the big strong queen that she is, makes it out of Mount Moon at level 31. And wow, the trick TM. Unfortunately, Mount Moon was not gracious to us. We did not get very many healing items, leaving us with only 2 healing items, which will restore cumulatively 32% of our health, which is basically nothing. But we trek on, facing off with the rival Chat again, who now has a Snorlax, and a Moltres, of course, along with his Tyranitar that is already level 27 and Swords Dancing. Thankfully, this time he got too greedy and critical hits knocked him out. But the only thing I could think about in the back of my mind throughout this entire experience is about the fact that I had literally nothing to attack a Shedinja with. I can't teach Tucker any TMs. Tucker isn't learning that many moves by level up. And since the only moves that can hurt a Shedinja are Flying, Fire, Ghost, and Dark, and Rock, if one appears, I just auto-lose. There's no way I can beat it. So if the randomizer wills it, every single battle on this bridge could be the end of the run. Any Pokemon could be Shedinja. Hiding around every corner is my night terror. But thankfully, we receive a piece of good news. We find one of the most valuable items in this entire run, a rare candy. Now you might think, well, Dan, you'll just use it now. You could use a little bit more levels, couldn't you? You're only level 36 right now. But no, this rare candy will stay in my bag for a very long time. So once we've grabbed the SS ticket from Bill, we immediately leave the town. We don't have to fight Misty yet, and honestly, it's not worth the risk. So instead, we trundle along to Vermilion City, where we can get a lot more training in. We grab the bike voucher from the man that definitely does not want to do coitus with a Rapidash, battle a few trainers to the right of Vermilion City, and only once we hit level 41, we decide that we're ready for the gym. We decide to avoid going to the SSN for now, because the SSN, much like Mount Moon, is an area where once you enter, you cannot leave. But we miss a few blizzards against this first Lugia, get hit with a Shadow Ball, and our health is dropping rapidly. We have to beat all the gym trainers before we can even fight Misty. But we're level 41. Things should be fine, right? Just a little scissor to handle that somehow has water absorb and Giga Drain on the same moveset, which is just fantastic. It'd be really nice if I had a fire type move right now, but nope. And I'm just not able to kill it. It continues to weaken us down, and we go down below half health in the first gym trainer. Thankfully, the second is a tad easier, but I decide to use a super potion just to get myself ready for the gym leader. And here she is with 5 Pokemon and me pretty damaged going into the fight. I was a little bit nervous. Aerodactyl dies to a Bubble Beam. Dustox get blasted by Extrasensory. Glalie gets smacked by Extrasensory as well. Lunatone goes down to a Bubble Beam. Tucker, you're doing fantastic right now. And the last Pokemon, a Shuckle, somehow outspeeds me but throws the game by going for Defense Curl, allowing us to take it out with Bubble Beam. A tremendous second badge victory. And the icing on the cake, Misty gives us the TM for Heat Wave. And since the TM is usually supposed to be Water Pulse, it means Tucker can learn it. All the anxieties about fighting a Shedinja, all the anxieties about fighting a water-absorbed Scizor is gone out the window. We replace Psycho Boost with Heat Wave, and we are feeling good. But now it's time for the SSN, a place with many, many items and many trainers, which can give you much experience. And thankfully, there's a bed at the SSN that you can sleep at to keep yourself healed up, right? Wrong! No, you can't. You're not allowed to use it. It's banned. Which means once you enter the SSN, you have to battle the rival and as many trainers as possible on 1 bar of health. Thankfully, chat, feeling particularly glorious today, decides to go a bit easy on Tucker by having Tyranitar just use Swords Dance again, meaning it won't be an issue this time. We grab Cut as usual, and then just try our best to fight as many trainers and grab as many items as humanly possible, which thankfully, due to Tucker being absolutely insanely specially strong, she pretty much one-shots everything on the boat, allowing us to farm some delicious experience, grab all the items, and make it off safely, giving us just slightly more healing items that we had before. So we teach Cloyster the Cut HM, and it becomes our little HM friend, our little buddy, our starter that's gonna help us get through the region. Then we pull a fun little strategy called murdering everyone between Cerulean and Rock Tunnel in order to get as much experience as humanly possible to fight Surge. And once we're level 49, we enter the gym. The gym trainers are no problem, literally taking no damage away from Tucker at all, and the Surge battle commences, leading with a Masquerain. Now, fortunately, Masquerain is a bug type, and I do have Heat Wave now, so I can just— oh no, he yawned me. Oh no, oh no, oh no, I'm gonna go to sleep. Oh no, that's really bad. So obviously, going to sleep in Kaizo Ironmon is very, very not good. You don't want to take any damage at all, and Tucker is cursed to fall asleep the next turn. Being level 50 is pretty nice, but doesn't really matter if you can't move. Thankfully, I had already prepared ahead of time, adding a Chesto Berry to Tucker, not knowing that we would get yawned, but preparing for just such an occasion, just in case it did. Remember, I've done 586 runs of this, okay? I don't want to make any mistakes in this, okay? The rest of Surge's team gets thoroughly dismantled by a few extra sensories, and the 3rd gym badge is claimed. Now it's time for Rock Tunnel. And listen, I've been playing these games since I was about 5 years old. I know exactly how to get through Rock Tunnel. Okay, fine, yeah, I had to use a guide, but there's nothing wrong with that. Rock Tunnel's a scary area, but as long as we don't get any early cave status or something like that, we should be absolutely fine. As long as, you know, a Salamence doesn't appear and, I don't know, survive a extrasensory, lower my speed, and then poison sting me into poison. Oh, what? Did that really? That's crazy. So I'm poisoned immediately upon entry in Rock Tunnel. And in this game, you take over world damage when you walk with poison. Also, I'm not allowed to use a healing item outside of battle, which means if I want to get a heal, I have to be inside of a battle. I have these healing items I can use, but not outside of battle. Well, that's fine, Daniel. Just run around until you find a wild Pokemon. Well, that would work if I didn't just put a repel on. So we decide the only viable opportunity, the only good idea is to walk until I find the next trainer, then immediately cure this poison. I do take a bit of damage in the meantime walking over, but there was really no other possibility. There was nothing else I could do. So I use my one singular full heal and pray that nothing else like that happens. I use a very cool interactive map that shows me exactly where to get the items and pick up an Everstone. Wow. That's great, thanks. Thankfully, though, I only get lost a little bit with that map open, and we're able to make it outside of Rock Tunnel. As soon as we arrive in Lavender Town, where we pay respects to every single other run that we've done so far, each tombstone is a run that we've tried in Kaizo Ironmon, and you have to immediately take on your rival. Chet thankfully decides to go a little bit easy on us, and Tyranitar gets greedy and swords dances again. This Tyranitar does not want to fight, he just wants to dance. Unfortunately, that doesn't win you battles. Now, the cool thing about Lavender Tower is since we have to come back here in the future with Silph Scope anyway, we get to go into Lavender Tower twice. We don't have to dedicate ourselves to just one run. So the first time we come in, we do our best to destroy as many of these trainers as possible, so on our second run, we're in less danger. Also, we can accumulate a lot of experience and level up for what's to come next. So we defeat the trainers, grab as many items as we can, avoid the ghosts, but I can't really do anything with the ghost right now, can I? And once we've suitably annihilated the trainers, we leave. Then we can kick back a bit, you know, we're at a decent enough level. We have a nice little chill sesh where we just take out trainers in the route between Saladon and Lavender Town. This is probably the first point in the game where you can properly just relax and imagine yourself not dying immediately to Patterrz Song or Destiny Bond or some random critical hit getting you. We can even do the double battles, and since we have to have 2 Pokemon for a double battle to start, we have to send out poor little Cloyster here, the starter Pokemon that has been carrying us through the region with its HMs. And also, unfortunately, since we want Tucker to get all of the experience, we have to kill our own Cloyster the first turn. But it's alright, Cloyster's a team player, it totally understands. In fact, I think that Cloyster in the future will do even more to help the squad out. But we grab all the items we can and arrive at Saladon City, where there's a couple of trainers that you can take on, including this couple that has level 44 Pokemon before the 4th gym. And trust me, this 50% level boost gets even crazier. By this point, Slowbro has learned all 9 moves that she's gonna learn, which means that the only moves that I can add to my moveset now are TMs that I acquire from gym leaders. But thankfully, we have a pretty good moveset right now anyway. So we defeat a Team Rocket grunt and decide that it's time to head downstairs. Now, the Team Rocket hideout actually does count as a dungeon, which means that, hey, we're in here. We're not allowed to leave until we've defeated the entire place, which means that the best way to do this is to beeline it immediately for the key, grab it, and then try and defeat Giovanni first. Which sounds a bit backwards, but that's the strategy. We struggle a bit when we're trying to get to Giovanni. We miss 2 heat waves in a row and then get hit with Thunder Wave. But Daniel, how did you get hit by Thunder Wave and critted twice? By the way, can we just acknowledge that? And I missed heat wave twice, but no, that's fine. How can I possibly get hit with a Thunder Wave when I have Volt Absorb? Well, in Generation 3, they do this really cool thing where they imagine that Thunder Wave isn't actually electric. I don't know what is going through their brains, but Thunder Wave does not get absorbed by Volt Absorb. So I'm forced to use one of my lava cookies, the only healing item I have that can cure paralysis, to get rid of it. And this Umbreon right here is immune to Extrasensory and Bubble Beam, making me use Heat Wave on this too. So now I'm running low on Heat Waves, which will be an issue if Shedinja pops up. And as luck would have it, as we are fighting Giovanni, there is no Shedinja. They didn't come on, thankfully. There was an Altaria though, and I got to hit it with Blizzard, so that's fun. We have a run-in with a long-lost sibling that has Drought and somehow Extreme Speed. Why is he called Slowbro? Should be called Turbo. But of course, it is the inferior version of Slowbro. So I grab the Silph Scope, we clean up the rest of the Team Rocket grunts in the hideout, and we skedaddle because it's time to head back to Pokemon Tower, which the ghost of Marowak turned out to be a Spoink. It's kind of hilarious. And then we take down Team Rocket Grunt after Team Rocket Grunt until Mr. Fuji is saved. Now's the perfect time to clear out all the trainers south of Lavender Town that I totally didn't forget about. I knew they were gonna be there. And man, do you get to grind at this point in the game. Jesus. You can go to Cyclone Road. You can go down the entire route all the way to Fuchsia City. There's probably like 50 trainers that you can take on now. So I'm feeling great. Me and Tucker, we're just spending the next several hours of our lives getting some items, getting some experience. And it was at this point, I think, well, maybe we could go all the way. Our special attack is ginormous. We have an incredible moveset, good amounts of PP, we're gathering some items, and then this dickhead appears. This Raichu not only has the audacity to survive an attack from Tucker, it also uses Destiny Bond, which means that I'm forced to waste a turn using a Pokeball. And then It uses Mega Horn and takes off a massive chunk of my health. You'd never imagine that Raichu would be the one that really throws you off, would you? Thankfully, since I outspeed it, I can finish it off with a second Bubble Beam, but that's a scary Pokemon to watch out for the future. Really hope it doesn't come back again in the future. After Tucker dominates a medium to large town worth of trainers, she develops a taste for blood that can only be quenched by one thing: a gym. So Tucker enters the 4th gym incredibly confident, sitting at a fantastic level 72 after all of that training in the hyperbolic time chamber of Pokemon. All the trainers in the gym are dismantled with relative ease. And surprisingly, Erica puts up a fantastic fight, forcing me to resort to petting my Subnoodle for luck. And with the power of Subnoodle's luck and power on my side, Tucker dismantles the rest of the team. Even a thematically appropriate Venusaur ace dies immediately to extrasensory, claiming the 4th gym badge. Now we've cleared through what is probably the easiest bit of the game. We get the TM for Earthquake, which I could use in theory, but I have 60 attack, which is basically useless. After that, we gain access to Saffron City, finally, with the first order of business to take on the gym. Oh, the little baby gym that no one really cares about anymore. Sorry, fighting type users. But these levels increase pretty rapidly. We're already fighting level 54s, but we embarrass the master of the dojo and steal our Milotic, which in theory, Milotic is one of the best Kaizo Ironmon Pokemon that you can get. Well, if you don't have yourself a Tucker, that is. Of course. Then we're faced with a quandary. Do we take on Silphco or the Fuchsia Gym first? Silly Convention in Fire Red Leaf Green has an enormous amount of trainers, something that we really want to harvest as much experience as possible from. It has so many levels, it has so many items, but it's a big risk going in there early because there's a guaranteed rival fight, there's a guaranteed Giovanni fight. We really have to be ready for that, so I opt to go for Fuchsia Gym instead. The levels in Fuchsia Gym are already over level 50, so this level 74 is still looking pretty good, but not as strong as it was literally 5 minutes ago. Forced to fight through every single trainer puts a drain on our health and our PP, and by the time we start the fight against Koga, we already are under half health, which means I pretty much have to heal immediately. So I shove a lemonade down Tucker's throat, pet my Subnoodle for luck, and remind myself that we have to ration our healing items like it's World War II Britain. I finally understand what my ancestors went through. And Exploud survives the first attack and hits us with a beat up, which reduces us by a little bit. Koga wastes a potion like the moron he is, and then he tosses out a Mew with Intimidate. And let me just say, Mew is the least intimidating Pokemon I've ever seen in my life. What a cute little darling. I'd pinch those little cheeks and give him head scritchums. Not like an Ursaring, which I would definitely not give head scritchums or any kind of scritchums. Unfortunately, the hail is gone, which is reducing my health by the turn, but it's only a Claydol. That can't cause much of an issue, surely. But oh, that's right. It's hailing, so Blizzard can just land every turn, right? That's how Blizzard works. It lands every turn in hail. At least that's what my chat told me. We get hit with a little bit more chip damage from the hail, and I think, oh, well, I mean, this is fine. We'll just use a Blizzard. It always lands in the hail. So we fire off a Blizzard and oh no, we missed. Turns out in Generation 3, Blizzard doesn't always land in the hail. Amnesia is used by Swampert, which boosts its special defense. I'm left with 100 health left, and things are suddenly not looking so good. Even Swampert looks confused. So now I'm in a sticky situation. I'm low on health. Swampert has a special defense buff, a massive special defense buff. If I click Blizzard again, it could miss. If I try and attack, Swampert could attack me and take me out. If I heal, I'd be wasting more healing items. The Swampert is now level 65, and I'm not feeling so good. I should have pet my Subnoodle even more for even more luck. So I decide to dump one of my Hyper Potions into Tucker, and Swampert uses Sketch, which gives it Blizzard. The hail stops, and I fire off an extra sensory to see how much we can do. Which we do a huge amount of damage. It uses Amnesia again to boost its special defense and a potion, meaning that it has +4 special defense now. But we still managed somehow to two-shot it, meaning that I didn't actually have to use that Hyper Potion, and I only had 2, so now I just have 1. But you know what? The main thing is we got the gym badge and a TM for Leaf Blade. Now, Swampert had just been a massive issue for us, and Leaf Blade would give us access to super effective damage against water types. And then after, I kid you not, a 15-minute discussion with my chat about if I should delete Blizzard for Leaf Blade or not. I decide that the correct option is to take Leaf Blade. Super effective damage, the 0% chance it can miss and fail me like it just did in that gym battle was just too tantalizing. It allured me in. It drew me in like a siren song. So now my moveset is complete. Bubble Beam, Extra Sensory, Heat Wave, and Leaf Blade. An unbeatable moveset, unless you are a dragon-type Pokemon. But now the opportunity to slay swimmers has opened up to us, and we start farming experience from all of those drowning denizens of the Seaform Islands and around there. I mean, just look how many there are. What are they even doing out here? We grab as much experience as we possibly can and even visit Mother. It's been a while. We make it down to Cinnabar Island, and by the time we're done with all of these trainers, we are around level 80. We thank Cloyster for carrying us on its back. Literally, it flies everywhere, it surfs everywhere. Cloyster's just been absolutely fantastic. So now Tucker is feeling very strong, level 80 with an incredibly good moveset. I would love to teach it Surf, but obviously I'm not allowed due to the fact that it's not a TM that I was given by a gym leader, so no Surf for Slowbro. But of course, since every single item is incredibly valuable, we scour the Seaform Islands to find everything that we possibly can. And just to whet my curiosity a bit, I decide to check out what the Articuno was, and my goodness, was it big and scary. But after getting lost in the Seaform Islands and finding literally nothing of value, seriously, I didn't get a single healing item this entire time, we use an escape rope so we can't go back in, and then head over to the power plants, which again gives us absolutely no healing items. Fantastic. And again, Legendary Bird, very big and scary. So there's about 20 items that could have been useful and weren't. So Cloyster graciously allows us to sit on its back as it flies us all the way across the entire country, all the way back to Cinnabar, so we could finally scour the Pokemon Mansion, which also wasn't super useful. Didn't really find anything good in there either. And now the amount of items that we can find in the rest of this game is dropping rapidly. But like I learned when I got the results back from my exams, having one massive disappointment doesn't stop you from having another massive disappointment. Armed with the secret key, we can finally step foot in Cinnabar Gym. The Pokemon we face in this gym are between level 50, level 60, which means Blaine is going to be around level 70. There's only so far that straight up being a higher level can carry us. And you may be thinking, but Daniel, aren't you missing something here? Is there not something you should have done before this? No, shut up. I'll get to that. Tucker dispatches the trainers with relative ease and the battle with Blaine begins. We pet our Subnoodle for luck as per usual, and a Butterfree leads. And the Butterfree, for some reason, has Drizzle. In this generation, Drizzle lasts the entire game. So my Bubble Beam just got boosted in power for the rest of the battle. This is fantastic, I think to myself. What a tremendous situation until a Stantler uses Petal Dance. I feel a lot better after realizing it did literally 18 points of damage. But Blaine having Drizzle and having the rain be constant in his own gym battle seems quite ironic. But the level 60s keep coming in. Oh my god, it's Raichu again! Raichu has come back from the dead to scare me once again. A Mega Horn comes out instead of a Destiny Bond. The Mega Horn does massive chunk of damage to Tucker. Thankfully, I do outspeed it, but I have to remember, Blaine has more Pokemon coming out later. Should I heal now? Should I wait and see what comes out next? This immediately turns into an incredibly scary situation, knowing that Raichu also has Destiny Bond, which can kill Tucker and end this entire run immediately if we misplay around it. The previous Mega Horn did 135 damage. Tucker now has 136 health. Blaine uses a Hyper Potion to heal up the Raichu as we fire off another Bubble Beam. It does just enough damage to be able to two-shot it, so I decide to risk it for the biscuit. It's not a speed tie. Raichu goes down. We'll have to wait and see what comes out next, and it's a Snorlax. Snorlax, an incredibly powerful Pokemon, usually with a mountain of health and special defense. With the randomized stats in this game, we don't know if it's still super bulky. It could also be incredibly fast. It could also be incredibly offensive. But the randomized stats, you don't know what you're fighting against. Of course, we do have Bubble Beam boosted by Drizzle, but who's to say that that would actually take it out? And if it didn't, what if the Snorlax had a Grass-type move? What if it had a Ghost-type move? Or a Dark-type move? It could kill Tucker right now. So I decide to risk it, because I'm a big man with big balls. And the Bubble Beam doesn't take it out. We are sent to sleep by Sing. Bearing in mind I have to ration all of my healing items for this entire game, we decide to use a Moo Moo Milk. And the Snorlax completely recovers in health, meaning that even if I wake up, this Snorlax might be able to tank a hit again. And we still don't know what kind of offensive capabilities it has. Fortunately, the Snorlax struggles in the brain cells department and keeps just using Mimic over and over again while I'm asleep. Tucker takes a nice, long, extended nap that lasts so long. I beg the Snorlax kid to keep using Mimic, and it does. After 7,000 years, Tucker wakes up, fires a Bubble Beam, and just manages to not kill it. But thankfully, a second is enough to take it out. Then comes the Claydol. But this time, we need not be scared. We know this Claydol has Water Absorb, and last time I was forced to use Blizzard on it, chance and a miss. But now we have Leaf Blade, which doesn't kill. Oops. I guess Blizzard would have killed. That's kind of awkward. But it doesn't do any damage, and Leaf Blade takes it out. The last Pokemon, a Poliwrath at level 71. It tickles us. Tucker laughs a little bit, chortles perhaps, and then an extra sensory takes out the Poliwrath, giving us the 7th gym badge. Even though we don't even have the 6th one yet, but the reason why is we needed to take out Blaine before we headed into Silico, because Blaine, when you acquire his gym badge, gives all of your Pokemon a special attack and special defense increase by about 10%. And when that 10% could be the difference between knocking a Pokemon out and potentially avoiding status or massive damage, then that's incredibly useful considering we need to farm as much experience from this entire area as possible. Now, if we take out Giovanni, all the Team Rocket grunts will pee-pee poof into the wilderness, never to be seen again. So we do the smart thing. We get the key cards, we scour the area for items, and we take on the only guaranteed fights before Giovanni, which is, of course, Chat once again, with Claydol making a reappearance. I really don't know what Chat's Tyranitar is doing. It's so obsessed with Swords Dance that he just cannot click anything else for some reason. But I'm not one to complain. We defeat the rival Chat and the single mandatory Team Rocket grunt that you have to fight in this entire place. After that, you just have free reign. You can go around, collect all the items, fight all the trainers, flirt with all the hostages. As long as you're confident that you can defeat Giovanni, you go as far as you can and get as much experience as possible, because there's like 50,000 Pokemon in here. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but there's still a lot. And again, you need every single experience point. It is astronomically important. If you fall behind in levels, that could end the run immediately. So I decide to turn into a corporate caretaker, and I sweep all the floors clean of all the rubbish. That is the Team Rocket grunts. And finally, at the ripe old level of 85, we fight Giovanni, who starts with another Drizzle Pokemon. How kind. A Bubble Beam is enough to take out Cradily, but then Girafarig appears. And for some strange reason, Girafarig is one of the scariest Pokemon that I could fight. Thankfully, we knock it out in one hit this time, but you just wait and see. Girafarig is a monster. We got a very appropriate Kangaskhan. I thought this game was supposed to be randomized. And Altaria, as his ace, misses a rock throw, but does outspeed Tucker. That's worth remembering for the future. Altaria in this game is fast. So I asked the president for some full restores because that'd be really good, and he gives me this useless little like purple ball thing. I'm not really sure why he gave me this, so I just kind of threw it away. I don't know, what am I gonna do with that? It's kind of dumb, honestly. And now, only slightly out of order, it's time to face off with Sabrina. I can't do my usual tactic of going clockwise through the teleporters until you arrive at Sabrina, because we need to fight every single gym trainer. But thankfully, Tucker is big and strong enough to avoid damage. We pet the Subnoodle for luck, as is tradition, and the battle against Sabrina begins. She leads with a Venusaur, and now sitting at level 87, I'm feeling pretty confident about this. Parasect, her ace, immediately annihilated by a Heat Wave. That's what you get for having a Parasect as an ace, you idiot. Sneasel enters the arena and is immediately melted. Tucker destroys Walran with a Leaf Blade. Swallow goes down to an extra sensory. And the final Pokemon, Shuckle, dies to Bubble Beam. 2 points of damage in an entire gym. Tucker is looking fantastic. But that was just the warm-up to the main event. The final gym in the Kanto region, Giovanni's gym. Usually this isn't really an issue because most people avoid the trainers in Giovanni's gym because they're all over the place, just looking at walls like gormless idiots. But of course, we can't do that this time. We have to face every single one, and all of them have more than one Pokemon, which is good for experience, but it's taken us so long to level up now that it doesn't really matter. We take a little bit of chip damage from this Charizard, and we battle Pokemon after Pokemon, fighting Metagrosses, Cacturns, and finally, for the first time in the game, we find ourselves a Shedinja. It immediately goes down to Heat Wave, but just imagine, that boy could have popped up at any time. The entire reason we bought Heat Wave in the first place, and if we never learned a Fire-type move, the run would have immediately ended right there. But there's no time to celebrate, there's more trainers to defeat. Pokemon after Pokemon, murder after murder. Slowly, the gym is dismantled trainer by trainer until eventually there are only one left. The standard petting of the sub-noodle ritual for a little bit of luck. And the final gym battle begins. With his weakest Pokemon being level 68, Swallow dies to an extrasensory. Persian, very thematic by the way, enters the arena. But the funniest part about this being that Giovanni's randomized name was Leo, and he had a Persian, the cat Pokemon, when my cat is called Leo. Just thought that was a bit funny, honestly. But we give ourselves an experience pack renewal. Rapidash hits us with a muddy water and lowers the accuracy of our moves. Not great. Thankfully, we're able to land a Leaf Blade on this Huntail, but it doesn't take it out. We take a slash, but not much damage comes from that. The last Pokemon is a Whiscash. At level 75, it hits us with an extreme speed, which crits and does a ton of damage. But thankfully enough, since we had access to Leaf Blade, we were able to take it down in one hit. That is every single gym badge and Kaizo Ironmon obtained. 0.001% of Kaizo Ironmon runs make it this far. We could consider this a massive victory just by itself, but Tucker's story is not done yet. We did one last run around the region just to gather as many potions as we possibly could. But to be honest, our stash is looking a little barren. We only have 11 healing items, and we only have enough heals to heal us for 300% of our health. That might sound like a lot, but when we're gonna go up against the 5 toughest battles in the game, against Pokemon that we're not necessarily going to even be stronger than or faster than, it is really very low. But now's not the time to think about that. We have one last battle against Chat before we can access the victory road. Altaria outspeeds us like it always does and lays down a Doom Desire, which is essentially like Future Sight. He then makes an incredibly smart switch into his Tyranitar on my extrasensory, making him immune, and Tyranitar does a bit of damage with that Psy-Wave. We then take the Doom Desire damage from the Altaria, taking another 50 points of health away from us. We then take another 50 points of health from the Leech Life. Already down 150 points of health with 5 Pokemon still left to fight. Gengar appears and disappears very quickly to an extrasensory, and then Snorlax makes an appearance. Hopefully not going to sing us this time. Oh, okay. Come on now. Really? Dude, again? Well, oh, okay. Maybe it'll do the Mimic thing again. Oh no, it did Memento. Uh-oh. Memento's a move that knocks out the Pokemon when it's used, which sounds good, but it also reduces the special attack and attack stats of your own Pokemon by 2, which is really bad considering the only thing that Tucker has going for her is a really big special attack stat. I can't use White Herb to restore the stats because for some reason you have to be holding White Herb. You can't just use it like you can with every other healing item. I'm also asleep at this point, and Altaria lays down another Doom Desire before it's killed. So things are looking great right now. I think we can all agree. I consider healing up here. It might be a good idea. I don't have enough power to guarantee knockouts on Pokemon now considering the Memento. But then I think, nah, it'll be alright, you know, probably. And go for a Bubble Beam, which it wasn't. It wasn't alright. We get hit with a Mega Punch. Don't know how it's punching us, but we also get critted. Fantastic news, I think we can all agree. The Paloswine goes down and Chat has 1 Pokemon left, and Nidoking, as we take the Doom Desire damage, leaving us with just 67 points of health. It's been a long time since we have seen Tucker in the red. This could spell the end, and I decide there's no choice. We have to use a Moo Milk to restore health. Nidoking goes for a Calm Mind, adding on to its special defense. With my already reduced special attack, it doesn't seem like I'd be— oh, damn, that did a lot of damage. Wait, Tucker, did you just get a flinch on that too? Oh my god, Tucker, even with the odds stacked against her, Tucker still manages to 2-shot the Nidoking. Incredibly impressive. And the path is now open to Victory Road. We need some good items. We need to find something decent around here. Unfortunately, oh, come on, really? One of those stupid little purple things again? All right, well, might as well just throw it. No point in carrying that thing around. What am I gonna do with this? Cloyster carries us on its back once again in an act of gracious kindness as we try and find as many items as we possibly can. And finally, our prayers are answered with a max potion, the second best item that I could possibly get.
You don't know how happy I was to see this. There's not a whole lot of those in this game.
And before we enter Victory Road, we find ourselves a max elixir. In the Elite Four run, PP is gonna be a massively valuable resource, so that's pretty good too. The entirety of Victory Road is mostly spent just picking up items and avoiding trainers as much as possible. Oh, wait, no, never mind. But really, we don't want to fight that many trainers because their levels are so high and our experience gain is so slow at this point that we're not even likely to get a level up. But I had an idea. I just needed to fight as many trainers as possible to get me up to level 90 because I still had that rare candy that I'd found back in Cerulean City, which would get me up to 91, which is the highest I'm gonna be able to get here. When every stat point is insanely valuable, I thought it was worth the risk. And the fights were tough. We were poisoned, put to sleep. We were forced to use valuable resources and risked getting poisoned again. Usually in Kaizo Ironmon, if you're one of the fated few to make it this far, the general wisdom is you're not supposed to fight anyone in Victory Road, because if your run ends here, you'd never forgive yourself for it. But I had a dream. I just needed one level. That's all I needed. So I continued to play the incredibly risky game of fighting Victory Road trainers. They all have at least 3, usually 4 or 5 Pokemon. They're all incredibly high leveled. They're all incredibly strong, but I knew if I could just get enough experience, it would put me in a really good position for the Elite Four. And thankfully, after intense fights against legendaries, pseudo-legendaries, and every scary Pokemon this game could muster, I took down a level 72 Walrein, and we made it to oh, wait, that didn't make it? Are you serious? I had to do another fight? Are you kidding me? All right, fine. I guess I'll just do this guy. I mean, this will be fine, right? He has 3 Pokemon? Oh, come on. He has no Altaria? But we take down this Altaria, get to level 90, and as soon as we take down his last Pokemon, I hightail it on out of Victory Road, not looking back for anything. And finally, to get the best use out of the rare candy possible, after all of this time of preserving it, the willpower of not using it, we gain another level, leaving us at level 91 for the Elite Four. We finally deposit Cloyster in the PC. Its task of carrying us through the region now complete. We decide that its job done. It can go back to its family now. Thank you for bringing us this far. We release you into the wilderness. Be free, Cloyster. We will not kill you. We will not turn you into stew. Thank you for all the help. Oh my god. He came back. After it brought us so far, after being our starter in this entire run, that made me kind of emotional for a second. Was it worried about you? Oh, don't do that, man. Come on my birthday? Dude, I'm a 27-year-old man. You can't do this to me. It said it wasn't worried about you. You don't have to be worried. Tucker's gonna be fine. Cloyster refuses to leave because it's worried about us. I tried to reassure it that Tucker's absolutely fine. Nothing's gonna go wrong. But a very heartfelt moment nonetheless. But it was time to enter the Elite Four. I sold all the items that I didn't need, leaving me with 13 healing items in total, which, you know, isn't a lot. And some of those healing items were potions, berry juice, and a couple of X items like an X accuracy, an X speed, and a dire hit. That was all I had. But I also had Tucker. We knew this would be the hardest challenge that we had faced yet, which is really saying something considering how hard the rest of the game is. I was confident and ready. I don't want to do this. 5 of the toughest battles in the game, back to back, with 1 Pokemon and very few ways to heal. Lorelei leads with a Hypno. Bubble Beam reduces it down to just below half health, and Hypno lands a Shadow Punch, which, on the very first turn, critical hits, bringing me down to almost death on the first turn of the first Pokemon of the first trainer. Immediately, I was distraught. I knew how much every health point was worth. I knew the value of every attack we take. If Tucker died on the first Elite Four member, I would be inconsolable. So we ponder, do we heal on this member? We know that we can take it out with a Bubble Beam, and we do outspeed if it's not a speed tie. And eventually we come to the conclusion that hopefully we can heal on another Pokemon. Now, the cool thing about Kaizo Ironmon is the second Pokemon that every trainer sends out is guaranteed to have a super effective move on you. Hi, Venomoth, how are you doing? So with a super effective move and Tucker in yellow health, I was understandably quite scared. Very terrified, actually. The chat was going back and forth between attack, and heal. Ultimately, I decided we needed to use one of our energy roots, one of our few good healing items on the second Pokemon, and Venomoth sends us to sleep. I have absolutely no way to wake up Tucker, as we don't have any full heals and no awakenings, so we just have to sit there while Venomoth sets up future sights. Tucker is asleep for 3 turns, but Venomoth heals us with a Thunderbolt. The super effective move that Venomoth was given was Thunderbolt, but we have Volt Absorb, so that heals us back up to full. In an incredibly lucky moment, Tucker wakes up and knocks out the Venomoth. Next up, it's... Oh, no, come on. No, not this guy again. Seriously? We're hit with the Future Sight, which does about 50 points of damage. And we know that we can take down this Hypno as long as it doesn't, you know, crit us again. It lands another Shadow Punch, and... Oh, it didn't crit us, but man, that's a lot of damage to be taken right now. Hypno goes down, and Magmar comes out next, which is easily taken out by Bubble Beam. Next up, an Aggron appears. And since we've seen an Aggron in the past, we can look at the moves that we saw that it had when we fought it. We last fought it at level 42, and it had Explosion. And if this Aggron outspeeds us and explodes now, well, I mean, that's it for Tucker. There's no way she can survive that. After giving it some thought, we decide to heal with our last Moo Moo Milk, as Aggron goes for Mind Reader. Thankfully, not an explosion, and then it goes for another Mind Reader. But don't worry, there's nothing going on in Tucker's head. No thoughts, head empty. Aggron, thankfully, goes down to a Bubble Beam without blowing up. And Lorelei's final Pokemon, a Relicanth, which... Thankfully, due to Leaf Blade, we can easily destroy. We've defeated the first Elite Four member, but we've used many healing items. Next up is Bruno, and we need this battle to go a lot better than the Lorelei fight did, because the other one was too stressful, and I might have a heart attack and go into cardiac arrest if that keeps happening, which would prevent me from completing the challenge. Thankfully, Tucker destroys Plusle, Hariyama, Mantine, Nidoking in one hit. Then the Clefable comes out and kind of ruins my day by not dying immediately, so that kind of sucks. We get smacked with a Fire Blast, and fortunately don't get burned. Clefable uses Endure just to PP stall me for some reason, but it's taken down pretty quickly after that. Then Altaria takes the stage. We already know Altaria is faster than me, and it does have Doom Desire, which can become a big issue about 2 turns from now. But as long as we can take out the Altaria before then, we should be okay. Altaria has a Citrus Berry which pops, so we just have to hope that we do enough damage with this extra sensory, and we do. So no Doom Desire damage, which is really, really important. Now it's time for the third Elite Four member, Agatha. She leads with a Shuckle that just defense curls for some reason. I'm not really sure why it's doing that. And it dies immediately to Bubble Beam. Then Pinsir makes an appearance. Pinsir with one of the only moves that can paralyze Tucker. So we decide to launch a Heat Wave at it. It doesn't miss, thankfully, and the Heat Wave brings it all the way down to basically no health. And it lands the Thunder Wave. This is not good. I don't have a lot of paralysis healing materials, and being paralyzed in this challenge is essentially a death sentence. You become a person walking around with leprosy. You're not gonna last long, and everybody knows it. I have 1 Cherry Berry that can cure paralysis, and 2 Paralyzed Heals. We used 1 to cure the paralysis, as Anne uses a full restore. Anne? Really? God, Anne? We fire off another Heat Wave, hoping this time we'll get a max roll, a really strong one that will knock out the Pinsir, and unfortunately, we don't. So we get paralyzed again. And I'm rapidly running out of paralysis cures. So now I have to decide if Agatha is going to heal her Pinsir again. Do I cure the paralysis this turn? If I cure the paralysis this turn and she heals again, I won't kill with Heat Wave again, and then I'll get paralyzed again. If I try and attack this turn, she may not heal, she may attack me. Also, I can get paralyzed. This is a tough decision to make, because if I call this play wrong, then our resources are dwindling rapidly. In the end, we decide to go for the paralyzed heal this turn. Agatha doesn't heal, but she does use a massive needle arm that does a massive amount of damage. Her ace is a Scizor, and the rest of the team is taken out pretty much without issue. We end the battle on 224 health. We pair a Subnoodle for luck one more time. Oh, okay, and then we do it again. We pair a Subnoodle again. We did a lot of that. And then the semi-final battle against Lance begins. And he leads with another Altaria, which, as we know, outspeeds us. And there's the Doom Desire again. Altaria does go down to a critical hit, thankfully. And then an old friend makes a reappearance. Desire.
Tucker owns Kanto.
Cloyster, the first Pokemon that we took on our journey. Cloyster. The Pokemon that we took from Professor Oak's lab. Cloyster, the Pokemon that helped us pivot into Tucker in the first place. Cloyster, the Pokemon that helps us capture Tucker. Cloyster, the Pokemon that we rode on, that we flew on, that helped us cut down trees, that guided us through the region with every single HM. Cloyster, the Pokemon that we could not have made it this far without, has betrayed us, and now we need to kill it. Yeah, Cloyster, the Pokemon that comes at the end of the game to heal us and sends us on our way! Cloyster, the Pokemon that gives us health! Cloyster, the Pokemon that did not betray us! That came to deliver a health pack before getting hit by a critical hit and dying, enabling us to go to level 92! Cloyster! Cloyster, our starter Pokemon, refused to be released. because he needed to infiltrate Lance's team. He was worried about us because he knew that we didn't have enough health to win. Cloyster joined Lance's team, an undercover agent, so that he could carry us one last time, so that he could provide vital vitality to Tucker before leaving the field and giving us enough experience to level up. This Cloyster was not a traitor. This Cloyster was the only reason that we had made it this far in the game. And this Cloyster gave us a chance to become champions. Next, a Girafarig hits the field. We do half its health with a Bubble Beam, and then it fires back with a Mega Horn, doing immense amounts of damage, bringing us down to just 89 points of health. And then the Doom Desire lands, leaving us on just 29. Without Cloyster's Thunderbolt, we would have died this turn. It's at this point where we use one of our max potions and then attempt to take down this Girafarig with a Bubble Beam. It doesn't kill the Girafarig, and we're hit with another Mega Horn. Left on just 31 points of health again, Tucker is in a bad situation. We know we outspeed the Girafarig, but is Lance gonna use another potion? Should we use our last max potion now or not? This is a big moment. Lance does go for the healing item, but I decide to make what could be the riskiest play. I decide to stay in on 31 points of health and fire off a Bubble Beam. And against all of chat's recommendations to heal right now, I decide that taking another Mega Horn is simply damage that we can't afford to have. So I fire off a second Bubble Beam, killing the Girafarig. We use our final max potion against a Steelix that fires off a Sludge Bomb. If it poisons us, we're done. But thankfully, we get lucky enough to avoid the poison this time. But this thing's got to go. We really don't have any answers for poison at this point, so we have to hope and pray that the Bubble Beam takes it out, which it doesn't. The Steelix uses Flatter, a move that boosts my special attack, but also confuses me. Not willing to risk myself getting poisoned, I trust in Tucker, and Tucker uses Leaf Blade on the Steelix, annihilating it. Then a Fearow enters the arena and lands a Sing on us. It sends us to sleep, so now I'm not only confused, but I'm sleeping. Thankfully, the Fearow can't really do a huge amount of damage, but every piece of health counts. After 3 turns, Tucker awakens from its beauty slumber and promptly doesn't hit itself in the face. Fearow goes down and lands its final Pokemon, a Breloom. Tucker hasn't hit itself so far, so now it launches its final... Oh, no, never mind. No, it hit itself. Okay. Breloom fires back with an Ancient Power, taking more health from us, and Tucker finally snaps out Confusion, launching one more extrasensory and ends in the battle against Lance. Once again, we find ourselves on 224 health points. We scan our bag for items and notice we still have that X-Speed and Dire Hit from before, which could be incredibly useful in the final fight. Dire Hit increases your critical hit ratio, and X-Speed, you know, gives you more speed, makes you like Sonic and stuff. So with our strategy in tow, we pet our Subnoodle one final time, and Tucker launches her courageous assault against Chat, the champion. We use the first turn, activating X-Speed to boost our speed, and Politoed lands a secret power, doing a lot of damage, but also chancing a paralysis. I used almost all of my paralyzed heals on the Pinsir fight from earlier on. So if we get paralyzed now, we're gonna be slowed down and potentially just not attack ever again. I decide not to risk it. We use a Leaf Blade, hoping to knock this thing out in one shot. But unfortunately, the Politoed survives and fires off another secret power. And disaster strikes. We're paralyzed by it and on red health. This is already looking like a sticky situation, so one Hyper Potion brings us up to 275 health as Chat uses a full restore. And I know I can't one-shot this Politoed anymore, while also still being paralyzed. The odds are stacked against us, and it's only the first Pokemon. We decide to use this opportunity to activate the Dire Hit, increasing my critical hit ratio, as we are slammed by a critical hit from Secret Power. We're then forced to use the last big potion I have, but nothing stops this Politoed from critting us twice in a row. I thought I used the Dire Hit, not them. After a lot of thinking, we decide to attack. We could be paralyzed this turn, and it could all be over, but we land a Leaf Blade, and with Dire Hit, we now have a 50% chance of getting a critical hit, which of course we don't get. It all comes down to this moment. We're low on health and we're paralyzed. I know I can outspeed the Politoed if I'm not paralyzed, so we decide to use the last Cherry Berry, the last item that can cure my paralysis. Unfortunately, we don't get paralyzed by this secret power. We're able to finish off the Politoed while on red health, but chat has 5 more Pokemon left. He tosses out a Ninetales, and we are running low on healing items. All the big ones have been used up, so now we're down to lemonade, soda pops, and super potions. We get hit with a Vine Whip, so we don't really recover all that much health after the lemonade use. We could be nearing our conclusion. This war of attrition is weighing on Tucker far too much. So I decide to hope and pray that I outspeed with the X speed. We fire off a Bubble Beam. We don't manage to take out the Ninetales. But thankfully, the Ninetales has a bit of a dummy moment and uses Imprison instead of Vine Whip. So we can finish it off with an extra sensory. Then enters Mantine, which must be a Jehovah's Witness or from the Mormon Church or something. I don't know. He just keeps using conversion. It's not working. But then after a few healing items, our speed drops, meaning the X speed has been cancelled out. We now just don't have any healing items and decide that we have to go on the offensive. So we fire off an extra sensory, we get a crit, and Mantine goes down. Then Tyranitar appears, our rival for the entire game so far. A Tyranitar that chose dance over violence so many times. We need this Tyranitar to choose dance again. But this time, Tyranitar is choosing violence. He activates Psywave, which just barely misses, allowing us to fire off a Bubble Beam. This Tyranitar also outspeeds us due to the speed drop. We get a crit on the Bubble Beam thanks to the Dire hit, and the Citrus Berry restores his health. But we know that he is going to heal this turn. So after a full restores it back to full health, I fire off a Leaf Blade, hoping to get a nice little sexy crit. It's a 50% chance, right? I mean, there's a pretty good chance that... No, never mind. Okay, no crit. Tyranitar misses another Psywave, fortunately enough, and our second Bubble Beam also does not crit. But it does get a speed drop. Chat heals with another full restore, and we don't crit Leaf Blade again. It would be really cool if Bubble Beam got one this time, so we used the Dire hit. Nope, it didn't. And the Psywave does land, taking another 70 points off of us. We fire off one final Leaf Blade on Tyranitar, and it goes down for good. Tucker has 100 health, no healing items, and a Ninjask lands on the field. And if we check the tracker, we can see this Ninjask has Shadow Ball. It decides not to use it and uses a Sludge Bomb that misses. But Sludge Bomb has a 100% hit rate. Usually, how did it miss? After a bit of confusion, we came to the conclusion that this Ninjask must have the Hustle ability, which increases your power, but lowers your accuracy, meaning that there's only one Pokemon between us and ultimate victory for Tucker. One Dodrio, a 3-headed beast that Tucker needs to overcome. We fire off an extra sensory and we're hit with a quick attack, which does 21 points of damage. The extra sensory does over half with a critical hit, but chat uses a full restore. We pet the noodle for a little bit of luck, hoping for one more crit, and it comes through, another critical hit for Tucker, meaning if we survive this quick attack, which we do on 58 points of health, we fire off another extra sensory, and we defeat chat, allowing Tucker to become the champion of Kaizo Ironmon. An absolutely incredible run that could not have been completed without the use of every single resource we have, without the support of Cloyster, our starter Pokemon, saving us at the end, and of course, without the power of Tucker the Slowbro. This is one of the most incredible Pokemon challenges I've ever had the pleasure of performing. Afterwards, we check Tucker's stats, so you can pause if you want to see those, but this was an absolutely incredible experience. 586 runs, and Tucker finally made it to the Hall of Fame. What an amazing Pokemon.